Hey guys, welcome to this live Q&A. My name is Craig Williams. I'm going to wait until we get a few people on, and then we'll kind of get going. I know there's a couple of people watching there. If you can just give me a hello, a yes, a number one if the sound and vision is all good, and whatever it is, and then I don't know how many people. I haven't really got a number of how many people to expect tonight. I think there's a few people messaged me already and sort of said they're quite interested in hearing what I've got to say. I've got a whole lot of questions that I've been asked in the last sort of few days, really, since I did the 100 miler, and I'm going to kind of work through there and talk about them. If nothing else, if we don't get any questions from you, some of those answers should be quite interesting. So stay tuned for that. So as soon as I get a little bit of notice that we're getting people on, then we'll kind of go for it. So I'm just this is the first time that I've kind of used this technology to stream, and it's actually the first time that I've done a live stream for quite a while. So just bear with me if I get a few things technically wrong, but I'll do my best. Okay, so two Carls on already. Carl Bowen, how are you doing, mate? Hope you're good. Thanks for letting me know the sound's good. Carl Williams, brilliant, who had a massive part to play in my 100 miler. He was one of my support crew, and he paced me for a while in his Jaguar, which was quite interesting. So yeah, you're on 555. Good. That's the old CB speak. Can't let it go. Right, brilliant. So that definitely seems to be working. There's a few people on there now. Don't be shy, guys. Get in the comment box and just kind of say hello. Let me know that you can hear me, you can see me. I haven't got anything other than myself on the screen right now, but I'm still kind of broadcasting. I'm just gonna try and check on Facebook. I made a post on Facebook about going live in about 30 minutes ago. So I just want to kind of check that and make sure that see if anybody's trying to message me because they can't get on or whatever. Okay. Good. Right. Okay. So the way this is going to work, like I said, I've got a whole sheet full of questions that people have asked me. There's basically been a couple of really regular questions that I've been asked, and I kind of want to answer them in this video. One, because I think it's good just to record some of these questions, which I'm sure I'm going to get time and time again. Two, I want to be able to test out this streaming software, and the other thing is quite good for kind of building, another video on my channel. So I know there's a couple of guys trying to get in, but YouTube not letting them in right now. Let me just see if I can share a link with them. Kathy actually saying hi. How you doing, Kathy? Hope you're good. 2 seconds, and then we really are getting into it. Can't even say talk to yourselves, can I? Just talk amongst yourselves, guys, By the way, whilst we're kind of doing that and having this little chat, sorting a few things out, there is a lag. I know there's about a 10-second lag. It's quite a big lag, really. So, just beware of that. And it shouldn't be too much of a problem for you guys. But if you're answering questions and it's taken me a while to answer them, it might just be that I've not quite picked it up yet because of the lag or whatever. Okay, so let me just send this to Jamie. Okay, so I'm going to turn everything else off, all the other distractions, and then we are good to go. Okay, so a couple of things I want to talk about before we get into my sort of 100 miles in less than 24 hours race review, okay? Or basically I'm going to answer a load of questions. So as you can see from this piece of paper that I've got a few questions there, not loads, but some really good, interesting questions from people that are either they want to do a 100 miler, or they are just, they can't believe that it can be done, or that have got no real interest in running at all, but they're just interested in, how somebody would go about running 100 miles. So this is kind of where I'm going to pitch it. I'm going to pitch it as like somebody who's a beginner to perhaps trail running, ultra running. I know there's a couple of people watching that are looking at doing runs in the future, and perhaps building up their distance and the time on the feet and all that kind of stuff, and maybe even back-to-back multi-day ultras. So this should be really good for you. Okay, so that's that. Before I start, on the screen you can see that I've got my Instagram name. Okay, I created a new Instagram account today. I want to separate my running stuff from my boot camp stuff. It's, I normally just throw my running stuff on my boot camp stuff, but what's happening is my running stuff is overtaking my boot camp stuff. So I've created a new Instagram account, which is Craig Williams Ultra. So before we start, and if you've got a minute, just head over to Instagram and just follow that. It's brand new. There's barely any followers, but you'll see my mush on there in a green t-shirt, and you'll be able to follow me. Okay, so just give me a little done on the comments if you've done that. Another thing, if you haven't subscribed to this YouTube channel already, then please do. I've got a film for this 100 miler coming out that I've already started to work on. I've got another couple of films that I've got coming out in the next couple of weeks. Apart from running, one of my other passions is to kind of document it and to create films. And, I am only an amateur filmmaker, so you're not going to get anything Steven Spielberg like, but I do enjoy doing it and I do enjoy sharing it. So, so make sure you kind of subscribe to this channel as well. So round about now, if you do have questions, obviously I've got a list of what I'm going to talk about in this thing, but if you've got questions, just fire them away and I'll do what I can to answer them. And also I know I've got he's called Carl on here, but we call him Joe. Joe's with us. Like I said, he was one of the support crew. So Joe, if you've got points or anything you remember as I'm sort of talking through, then stick them in the chat as well. Okay, so a couple of questions. So the first question I got asked was, is it really possible to run 100 miles in 24 hours? And of course, what 100% is possible. I did it. In fact, I did 104, nearly 105 miles. And I think, and I had about another 25 minutes spare. So even just walking, I could have got to 106 miles. Having looked at the data, I can see that myself, even as just like an average runner, all right, I've done some distances in the past, and I've done some pretty big events in the past and had to work up to it. But I'm not a fast runner. I'm much heavier than the average runner. And, and I did it, I want to say comfortably. Joe, you was there. You was kind of watching what was going on. Yes, I was in pain. Yes, I was aching and hurting, but relatively comfortably, which is, so that's the truth. And a lot of people will believe that it's just not possible. Now, the rest of the questions I'm going to talk about is kind of how I did it. So Carl, you got a couple of questions there. I've got two questions, mate. My first one is, did you at any stage, i.e. certain miles, time of night, etc., that you felt like, what am I doing? If so, how did you dig through that? There was, in fact, let me just come back a little bit. Let me talk to you about the actual race itself. So the race was part of a race called Day Release by a company called Beyond Marathon. And it's like a prison break theme race. So the idea was, because of lockdown and all that, you basically had to start at or pretty near to your home, and you had to run as far as you could and then back home in 24 hours. So that was a whole load of things that you really had to think about, especially kind of, as you're running along, you're kind of thinking, right, how far can I get before I run out of time on the way back, through fatigue and naturally slowing down and all that kind of stuff. And it was a little bit of chess and a little bit of game of cat and mouse as you was doing the race. And there's also a lot of that as you was planning it. Running with Mark, amazing to have you on the live stream. He's a YouTuber, lives in Finland, but from the northwest of England. Head over to his channel and follow him if you can. It's good to have you on the stream. So that's kind of what I did. I originally, basically, there was medals for covering 15 miles as the crow flies, 30 miles as the crow flies, or 45. Now, I decided quite early on that I wanted to go for the 45 miles. I thought, truly I can do 45 miles in 24 hours. And then that kind of, so in order to do 45, obviously you've got to cover 90 miles, 45 miles out, 45 miles back. And I thought, if I'm doing 90, maybe I can go for this holy grail, hallelujah, of like 100 miles, and a lot of trail and ultra runners do have this bucket list goal of covering 100 miles. So I thought, right, I'm going to go for it, and there's really no time like the present. I suppose there's no point spending months and months to think about it. Let's just kind of commit to it and let's go for it and let's do it. What happened on the back or before that then, 4 weeks out, I then got COVID. Now, luckily, I wasn't that sick with COVID. I had 3 days where I was flat packed on the settee and I didn't want to move. And then after that, I pretty much recovered pretty quick. I had a little bit of a tickle in my chest. I felt like there was a couple of inches off my chest still kind of missing and defunct. But on the whole, I felt really good. So I thought, right, I'm going to go for it. So that's kind of how, that kind of what tees up the race. I originally planned to do it pretty much self-sufficient. I then thought that I could perhaps, have a vehicle on at the halfway turnaround point where I can resupply myself and stop at a few shops and stuff on the way. I then got some incredible volunteers that decided, that put themselves forward and said, look, if you're going to do this, I'd really like to help. One was my brother and one was a good friend, Andy. So we went for it. And I wish I could say that it was full of terror and, big problems and all that kind of stuff. Don't get me wrong. It didn't go, it wasn't like completely without any problems. But on the whole, it went pretty smooth. It went relatively well. So that was it. I started at 4:00 in the afternoon. That was a tactical decision to start at 4, just as the sun was starting to come down, because I wanted like a meteorological deadline that I couldn't miss as I was approaching the finish line. And I thought, if it gets to the point where I'm literally sprinting home to come in the 24 hours, if it's starting to get dark, that is really, really going to cause me to push on. Otherwise, it boils down to checking your watch in order to know where you are. Okay. But I want this sheet of darkness coming towards me as I was approaching home. It also meant that when I set off, the busy traffic, I was only on busy traffic for a couple of hours on the roads, and then things would start to calm down. All right. And then when I popped out, there was basically a 20-mile road stage, then onto a canal, then onto another road stage. So when I popped out into this second road stage, it was pretty much dead. There was barely any cars around. So that was a good move. Back onto the canal stage. And then I literally had a bit of traffic on Sunday lunchtime, Sunday morning, Sunday lunchtime, all the way back in to finish at 4:00. So that's kind of how the race run. Like I said, I'm willing to answer whatever questions you've got. I'll start off with Carl. So please, stick the questions in, and we'll kind of work through. By the way, I'll just run this until either you guys get bored and bugger off, or we run out of questions, and or my throat gives up. So. Okay, so first one of Carl's questions then. Is a certain miles, a time of night, etc., that you felt like, what am I doing? If so, how did you dig through that? I had a couple of mental mantras throughout the whole event. One before, okay, so before it, I just kept thinking, I'm not the first to run 100 miles. And if they can do it, why can't I? The other one was that, I truly committed to this. And what I mean by that is, instead of saying, let's just see how it goes, how a lot of people do when they're doing big races, they say, I'll just see how it goes. That gives you an out in my mind. In my head, I was like, I'm committed to this. It doesn't have to be fast. It doesn't have to be pretty. It just needs to be done. If I'm going to do this, I need to do every step. I need to do every mile, regardless. And I was talking to Joe and a couple of the people on the support team, and I was saying, look, even if I miss the 24-hour deadline, I'm finishing the distance, just because I truly committed to doing that distance. If I came in under 24 hours, then that really was a bonus. So that's kind of how I played it with that. When I started, so a couple of dip times, right? I had one time, it was about mile 45. It was about 1:30 in the morning, and I'd looked at my watch, and I basically created a strategy where I was gonna have a run out for 50 odd miles, and then a long walk back for 50 odd miles, and that's kind of how I anticipated doing the race. So everything boiled down as I was running out, it boiled down to getting to the turnaround point after 10 hours, so pretty much bang on 10 hours. In fact, I was hoping I had a little bit of time to be able to push on and perhaps go a little bit further than the turnaround point. It didn't work out like that. And about 45 miles, it was clear I just was not going to hit this 10-hour mark. What had happened was I started really quick, and then as soon as I hit the dark, wet, muddy, slippy canal, it just really, really slowed me down. I just couldn't get any traction with my feet. I couldn't see where I was going. I had a head torch on, but it was a really misty night. I don't know if you can remember Saturday night, but it was really misty. And the light from my head torch was reflecting off the mist a little bit like it does in fog. And I just couldn't really see anything. So quite often I'd turn my light off and I'd just run through the mist and kind of feel my way through the canal and hope I didn't end up wet. But it really kind of slowed me down. And then I speeded up again once I got onto the road. But it really sapped me. So when I got to 45, it was clear I was going to hit the 10-hour mark. So I phoned Andy, who was the support crew at the turnaround point, and he had some food and everything ready me. And I said to him, look, I'm not going to hit the 10-hour point. I'm going to turn around at the 47-mile point. Now, what that meant was I wouldn't have got the 100 miles, but I would have got the 45-mile medal, and I would have come in under 24 hours. So I'd still get the medal and probably still finish quite high up in the rankings on the actual race. And Andy was not having any of it. He's like, that bullshit, this 10 hours is an arbitrary number. You've plucked out your ass. It means nothing. Get your body up here and we'll recover the time on the way back or whatever. And he just wasn't having any of it. And I was like, I thought he'd understand and all this. And he was like, basically saying, you committed to 100. Let's get this 100 done regardless, and I'm glad he did. I'm glad he did on reflection. But at the time, it was like a big kick in the nuts. And I was like, I don't want to be doing that. I don't want to do those extra miles. And then I heard a car coming up behind me. So I was on this long straight road. The lights at the end of the road, it just didn't seem to be getting any closer. And I heard a car coming up slowly behind me. And as I turned my head, it was my wife, my son, and my little puppy that had come out to meet me at the halfway point. And that just picked me up, and they basically just cruised alongside me as I trotted along the road, and it just took my mind off things long enough for me to forget that I didn't want to be doing these extra miles, and just to push on and get it done. And it's a weird thing because, there's a lot of research and a lot of talk about, what fatigue is in the body and all this kind of stuff. But I've experienced now many, many times where you think you're done. Something happens to change the state in your body or to take your mind off it, and you just go again. It's an incredible, incredible thing. That was the main time when I thought, I don't want to be doing this. Other times, there were other times when it was low. In the canal, on the canal, it was just ridiculous. I thought the canal was my secret weapon. It was flat. There was no traffic. It was straight. So I just thought, this was going to be my secret weapon, and it turned out to be a massive Achilles heel. So, that was a bit of a kicker. But again, I just had to get through it. I couldn't change the route last minute, so it just had to be done. And I just had some running, some walking poles, and I just, did as much running as I could, strided out as much as I could, and get going. The second time where I really kind of had to question stuff was I was running along, and because of let me just see if I can show you, but I have a spreadsheet where, is that it? No, let me turn that off. Here it is. So you should be able to see that. No, maybe not. I've got a spreadsheet where I had all the timings and everything laid out. So this is the spreadsheet here. I had all the timings and everything laid out, and all the distances and all this kind of stuff. And it was really quite well planned, to give me some comfort wherever I got. I kind of knew where I were. Now, as I was getting kind of down here, this yellow bit is daylight. This is dark. As I was getting down here, I'd said to one of the support crew, how far have I got to go? Because I was looking at the watch, and in my head, I had like 12 hours to go. Was I going to be able to do it? And he just plucked a number out of the air and said like 31 mile. And I thought, 31 mile, can't be right. But if it is, brilliant, I can still do this. Now, what I did was I slowed down a little bit subconsciously or whatever. And I kept on going for another 3 or 4 miles. And I started to think about the distances between the legs from what I could remember. And I thought, it just doesn't add up. So I said, listen, can you send me a message with the distances for the checkpoints, just so I can get my head around it? And so he sent me the message with the distances for the legs. And I'd already done 4 miles since he'd told me 31 mile. And it worked out another 38 miles to go, so it was way off. Now, when you have your kind of world rocked like that, it can take some coming back. And I was kicking myself. Now, I was very fortunate that a guy was going to pace me, a guy called Graham anyway, he's a friend of mine, and he was due to meet me as the checkpoint before I popped off the canal. Because I was so much slower, he was like, look, I'll join you earlier on the canal. And it just happened to be at this point where I was actually a little bit down and struggling a little bit. So he came up and joined me. And then what I had then was him kind of pushing me on, talking to me. I would probably walk sometimes when I should have been running if he wasn't watching. And, and he lifted me, was kind of chatting away. There wasn't much conversation from me, but he was kind of chatting away and taking my mind off stuff. And he did a couple of things, like he gave me some flapjack, which was a different taste, different texture, and kind of got me back up and moving again. So that was really good. Other than that, there was key things in the race which just kept you going. So one was getting to the halfway point. The next one was getting to the canal. After that, it was getting off the canal and it being daylight. After daylight, it was getting to Ash, who was the next pacer that was going to join me. After Ash, it was getting to the finish, and just concentrate on those little bits really kind of helped me get through. So I know that's a long answer to your question, Carl, but I hope people kind of enjoy, or understand or take stuff from my answer there. Second one from Carl is, on the day you set off at 4 o'clock, what was your routine during the day? And if so, if you was to do this again, would you change anything you did on the day? Food, sleep, drinks, etc. My routine was pretty much similar to what I normally do. I did make an effort to stay off my feet as much as I could. I did intend to sleep in for a little bit longer than I normally would. I didn't. I was up at 5. And, I just had bacon and eggs with some tomatoes and mushrooms for breakfast. I had I can't remember what I had for a lunch, but it was really light lunch. I didn't want to be sort of bloated and all that kind of stuff when I started running. Loads of hydration. I had a couple of pretty strong hydration drinks just to make sure that was all kind of taken care of. I spent a lot of time making sure the kit was ready, the food was ready. About 2:30, Andy and Joe arrived, so I was briefing them. Andy was responsible for food, feeding, checkpoints, all that kind of stuff. So I kind of briefed him and went through the food and all that. And then he went off to do some bits of admin. And then I briefed Joe on checkpoints, timings, locations, routes, camera stuff because he filmed it, or he filmed parts of it, and then that was it. We kind of made our way to the start, and it literally was 3, 2, 1, away we go. We set off about 3 miles from where I live, outside this guy's house, and he came out. He thought, because there was 2 or 3 cars there, he thought, bloody hell, there's been an accident. I'll go out and see if I can lend a hand. And when he came out, he just saw people stood outside his house. He was like, everything all right? And he's like, yeah, this guy's just going to run. This guy's just going to run 100 miles. And he was like, what? And he just couldn't believe it. And that's the response that I got quite a lot. So, yeah, that was it really. Would I change anything? Yeah, I would like to have slept in a little bit longer, but it didn't really bother me. I didn't really feel tired at any point. It's 24 hours. If you can't stay awake for 24 hours, Carl, this, having been in the forces, there's something wrong really. So, would I change anything else? No, I don't think I would. I think it went as good as it could be. You can tend to overthink these things sometimes. Apart from sleeping in a little bit longer, which may have helped, I don't know. I wouldn't have changed it. Okay, so Running with Mark says, does your military background help in these adventures, or do you think that it's that you had this mental and determination prior to that? Anyway, I was definitely mentally tough and resilient before the Marines. I used to do a lot of work as a young lad with my granddad on his farm and that. And, it was ridiculous temperatures in the winter, doing some pretty crap work, cutting up your hands on digging with shovels. And, it was just definitely toughened me up. And when I joined the military, obviously that starts to get nurtured. It starts to get improved. And I 100% believe that my military background helps me get through all these adventures. The reason being is that, people often think that I must be out running all the time and I must be training all the time. And I just don't, I don't. Up until recently, I've barely run consistently. I'm heavy, I could have easily dropped 1.5 stone before doing this race and any other race that I've done in the past. I'm basically like a chubby runner compared to a lot of runners. And a lot of it does boil down to military experience, knowing how to operate in inclement weather and, in different environments, and being able to look after myself. I think, that is that is one of the big ones. I think, some things that I deal with, and Mark, this anyway, every long run is just a series of choices. It's a series of problems that's got to be solved, whether it's, your calves start cramping up, your back starts hurting, you start bloody, you're dehydrated, whatever it is. It's just a series of problems that you need to fix. And being in the military, you quickly learn how to do all that. So yeah, that definitely helped. Was there any kind of, I don't really spend a lot of time thinking about my military service anymore. I used to, but I found that when I thought a lot about stuff like that, I tend to get depressed and I think about the past. I always try and think about the future now, so, and I just have this belief about my own abilities and what I do. So, it's not like I think back to Afghan or the commando tests or anything like that. It's just, I just have this belief that I can do these things. One thing that does really help is one of the tests in Marine training is you do a 30 miler. So you do 30 miles over Dartmoor, carrying all your kit, which weighs to about 2-3 stone when you've got your weapon. And once you've done that 30 miler, any other 30 mile is just bread and butter. I even broke it down into, well, it's just 3.5 30 milers, it didn't sound that bad. And when I had 30 miles to go, I was just like, right, just another 30, it's just another 30 miler. And you kind of just get on with it, So I hope that answered your question there. Joe's saying we didn't account for checkpoint times. That's right. I didn't, in this spreadsheet, I didn't account for any time at checkpoints. I was going to be pretty fluid and pretty flexible with that, depending on how I felt. Some checkpoints I was more or less in, sort myself out, new water, new food, perhaps change a bit of kit, like socks or whatever, and then straight out. Others I spent 10 minutes in there and had a decent bit, well, half a pot noodle and a bit of porridge or whatever, but I had a bit more food, and then just kind of cracked on. But one of my strengths on the multi-day ultras is just being able to get through the checkpoints really quick. Some people spend hours there, literally, and I'd rather be walking and moving than sitting there not making any progress. So I don't know how much time total. We should work out, Joe, just how much time in total we spent at the checkpoints. Carl saying, great answer, mate. Thank you very much. How did you feel when you crested the last hill and saw the finish line? I'm going to answer this quickly, and then I've got a question from Jamie that's sent through on WhatsApp. How did I feel when I saw? Of course, there was a little bit of thank God for that. Those last couple of stages, they just didn't seem to end. They went on and on and on. But they're always bound to. It's getting towards the end of 100 miles. You're fatigued. You're tired. You just want it to finish, and even 1 or 2 minutes seems like a long time. And I felt elated. There was a couple of times when I did like a little bit of a bubble. One of the big reasons why I did this race was because it was on my doorstep, and I knew my wife was going to be there, and she's never seen a race like this. I knew some of my family was going to be there, and obviously that had a bit of an impact, as well as the fact that I was about to tick off a big bucket list goal, run 100 miles in 24 hours. So it did feel great. When I saw the finish line, I was like, right, let's go. And then we started running, and we just started getting faster and faster. And I've looked at the video on Facebook and that, and it just doesn't seem like we're moving that fast. But, we must have got down to like 7-minute miles as we're crossing the finish line. Again, it just shows how when you think you're fatigued and knackered, at certain points with certain things going on, you can find something else, and you can kind of push on and get it done. But it felt amazing. And what's been, it's carried on, I've had so many positive, immense reactions to it that, I've just, it's been great for the last couple of days. Sam said, how do you get that? Oh, so I was going to talk about the kit. So with the kit, I had almost like 2 sets of kit. I had one kit where I was light and I was on the road, and I had road running shoes, light shorts, a couple of light tops just to keep me warm, a head torch, a buff. I had some thin gloves, like contact gloves. I had a 500 ml sort of flexible water bottle. Because I was meeting enough times to kind of change that, in a running vest, and a couple of snacks, chocolate and chocolate bars and that kind of stuff. And that was pretty much it on the road. Oh, and a rain jacket, a light rain jacket in the back, plus my tracker and phone. Okay, so that's kind of what I ran on the road. When I got into the canal, obviously I was going to be cut off quite significantly. And, some of the areas it would have been to get to me, if anything had gone wrong on foot, walking, it would have been an hour and a half in places. So I took some extra kit. So I had a slightly bigger bag, Ultimate Direction fast pack, where I had some windproof trousers. I had a windproof, like hooded top, like fleecy top, woolly hat, some thicker gloves. I had an emergency blanket, a strobe light, whistle. Jamie will be laughing at this because it's all stuff that you take on mountain training in the Marines. And what else? Some extra food, and I took extra water, some hydration salts. Other than that, I did have a spare change of clothes. I had like some leggings in case it was really cold by the time I hit the canal, but it was relatively warm throughout the night, and I just stayed in the same kit the whole time, the same shorts and tops, and I just regulated my body temperature with a buff. I either put it over my head, as like a bit of a thing, or around my neck, whatever was chilly, and a little pair of gloves. So, and then the other thing, the significant thing I did was, as I got to the canal, I changed my trainers to some trail running shoes, and then kept the same socks on. Did the canal stage. At the end of the canal stage, I changed my socks, fresh socks, dried, put some talc on my feet, and then put my road running shoes back on. and then did the road section back to the canal, changed into my trail shoes again, got to the end of the canal, changed socks and shoes, and then I was all the way to the finish. What I will say is I know that was a bit down and dirty, but I'm going to do a separate video on all the kit that I took and what I would change, if anything. And there's a few other kit videos on my channel as well, so you can kind of have a look at that. And that's the kit that I kind of took. And did I use it all? No, but it was good to have. And would I take anything different? I did anticipate taking this cap. I didn't. You know, I'm a sponsored athlete by this Beautifully Brutal race club, and I was supposed to wear this hat. I forgot it, so I couldn't. But other than that, I would have taken a cap, and you know that might have just kept some of the sweat out of my eyes when I first started. The white panel might have made me a little bit more obvious running down the roads, and I just, you know, I quite like running in a cap sometimes. But that was that. So hopefully that helps. I'll just check. Jamie's just sent me another message here. Great, thank you. He's saying, great, thank you. What's your favorite trail shoe? My favorite trail shoe at the minute, I don't think I've got them in here in my office, are the Saucony Peregrine 10s. The reason being is that they've got just the right amount of cushioning and the right amount of protection in a shoe that you can get as light as you can with that protection and cushioning. They feel really good, lots of space around the toes, and it's also got this carbon, I think it's carbon, or maybe it's just carbon effect, rock plate. So if you stand on rocks, I've used trail running shoes and different trail shoes all over the world, all different environments, and sometimes the sharp rocks and stones really batter your feet. Now, because of this plate, it does protect you against those rocks, and I think that's just brilliant. The grip as well is just phenomenal. You know, I've used lots of different shoes. The ones that I want to I always kind of mention are Solomon's. I just don't think the grip is very good on them, and I don't trust it on some of the slippy surfaces. And I think if I'd had Solomon's on the canal bank, I would have been in the canal. But this grip on these Saucony Peregrine 10s, phenomenal, and I really do recommend them. A little bit pricey. I think they're like 120, 130 pound a pair. But you know, I just love them. But I've had tried loads of different shoes before, and I mix out the shoes depending on what the event is. Like I had a different shoe for the Arctic, I had a different one for the grasslands in Kenya, I had a different shoe for the Sahara. So, you know, I mix it out depending on what the terrain is. But they are my current daily trail running shoes. So, and they're definitely robust enough if you're doing kind of lots of the stuff you're doing, Jamie, where you're on the hills, and it's almost like a cross between hiking and running, riking, whatever you'd call it. So definitely good enough for that. And I also put in these laces called X10X laces. It's just like an elastic lace. So, you know, when I got off the canal, I just wouldn't have been able to get them undone. It's just that much mud and crap all over my trainers that I'd have just taken ages. But because of these elastic laces, you can just whack them on. You don't need to tie them. You don't need to untie them. You just like become slip-on shoes. They're really good. So what's next? So Joe saying, Sam said, how did you get that belief that you can do that in the first place? He doesn't know if she could gain that. Do you know, it's bit by bit. You know, it's like you don't just wake up and think, you know what, you might do. I can run 100 miles. You know, you've got to remember that 6 years ago, I was about to head out to the Sahara, and I didn't know whether I was going to be able to do this. And 4 years before that, I was about to do my first marathon, and I didn't know whether I was going to complete that, you know. And I've done other races and other events where I'm just like, I just don't know whether I'm going to be able to do this. And what's shitty is the people around you do believe you can do it, you know. I mean, you still have these little doubts and stuff, but and you just got to work up to it, you know, by constantly challenging yourself a little bit. And there's a saying that once your belief has been stretched, it never settles back to where it was, you know. And that's the case. It's just keep working at it, keep challenging yourself, finding different challenges in different ways, and just keep building up that belief. And you can turn it into a formidable ally in in life, in everything, and it's really worth kind of getting at it. Sam, I know what you do for a living, and some people wouldn't do that, but you get up every day and you go and do it. And, it's exactly the same. It's exactly the same. So, the more you do it, the better at it you get, the more belief you get. And it's one of these things where, there's a belief cycle where we have a thought, and in that thought, we look for all the ways to prove it right. When we see things to kind of prove it right, that strengthens the thought. And then we have another thought, and we look for all the proof, all the evidence. When we find the evidence, it cements the thought, and we just keep going round and round and round, and that's what happens. So you start off right, and you run 10 mile, right? Where's the evidence that I've run 10 mile? Well, there it is on my watch. Oh, brilliant, right? Okay, that strengthens that belief. What's the next thought? Well, I now believe that I can do 120 miles in 24 hours. In fact, I believe that, or I could do 100 miles in 21 hours. I believe I can. I didn't before this weekend. It's definitely something that I've had to kind of work on and build up. I also believe that if I lose a stone and a half, I'll be freaking much quicker than I am now. So I hope that answers your question. Mark says, thanks for sharing. Carl's saying, after the first canal stage, you dressed a couple of blisters. Yeah, I had a couple of blisters on the first canal stage. Well, no, that's wrong. I had a couple of hot spots. So it's just where the skin is starting to get a little bit tender. And if I'd have left it, it would have become a blister, And now blisters can be crippling. As crap as they are, they really can. So, if you've got a bit of time, and again, it's that idea of making choices and solving problems. If you can just, 30 seconds to put a bit of tape on your hot spot can just keep you in the race and keep you going, whereas a lot of people will just ignore it, try and soldier through, and they're just limping the whole way through, and you don't have to be that miserable. Now, obviously, sorting blisters out, that is something that, again, you learn, a skill that you learn, and it's something to be practiced and all that. But yeah, definitely remember that. Sam asked, did you have to do anything else to look after your body whilst out? Yeah. But the only thing I had to do, one thing was keep moving. If you stop for any length of time, you are cooked, so you've got to keep moving. Another thing that I did was there was a couple of times when I almost started to cramp up around the knees, some of the muscles around the knees and in the thighs, and I just run along sort of drumming the thighs with my hands, and I just wanted to get the blood going. I just wanted to get some of the crap off. I wanted to turn on some of the nerves that perhaps weren't working, and I just a little thing just to kind of get those muscles firing again, and take my mind off stuff or whatever. But that was pretty much it. I didn't have to do a great deal of anything else. So great mug, by the way. What else? That's why your feet hurt. You're a 9. You need a Peregrine 9s. Do you know? If Jamie's still watching, he'll laugh at this. So when you first join the Marines, you go down into the store, and it's like a fortress, really, of these old guys that have been there for years and years. I've seen thousands and thousands of recruits turn up, and you just number anyway. But these guys, you're just like a piece of shit. And anyway, they measure everything. They don't leave anything to chance. They measure everything, and they give you everything. So you get, 2 pairs of trousers, 1 pair of boots, 3 pair of all this kind of stuff, and you get all your stores and all your kit. Now, when they measured me, they said, right, you're a 9, right? Now, I just believed that. I was like, okay, I'm a 9, and I've gone up until probably 3 years ago, believing I'm a 9 and just buying size 9s and just wearing size 9s, and my feet at times have been absolutely battered. And then I went and got my feet properly measured, and this guy's like, yeah, you're a 10. And I was like, I can't be, I'm a 9. And he's like, no, you're definitely a 10. I was like, hell, they told me I was a 9. He goes, yeah, well, that was, 30 odd years ago, or whatever it was. And I went through life thinking I was a 9 just because I'd been told I was a 9, So yeah, that's why I got the Peregrine 10s. Okay, I've got a couple more questions or comments on here, and then I'm going to look at some of the questions I've got on the sheet there. If there's still people around, I don't know. G10 for men, that's it. Can we get rid of the spreadsheet now? Well, you're having flashbacks to that spreadsheet, Joe. There you go. Right, a couple of things that I've got in here. A couple of a little bit different questions, but can you walk 100 miles in a day? Right, I'm going to do this little thing. I don't have any watching, but I did a little bit of research before I came online, and there's actually a world record for walking 100 miles. It's just see if you can guess. See if you can guess what it is. Now you 100% can walk it. All right, you've got to be moving. You can't slow down, and you don't get a lot of opportunity to stop. But you 100% can walk it. You need to be averaging about 14-minute miles, which is it's a fast, brisk walk, for 100 miles. But 14-minute miles is going to bring you in under the 24 hours. The problem with that is it doesn't give you much of a buffer. You only need to stop and have a pee. You have a trainer malfunction. You need to go to the toilet. You get stopped by the police, as we did. Anything like that can just throw it out. And if you're doing 40-minute miles and you need to do 40-minute miles consistently, it can just go wrong really, really quickly. But you definitely can walk it. I've not had anybody guess, but I'm going to throw it out here because no doubt you would have written it before with the before I say it with the delay anyway. But the record 16 hours, 31 minutes, and 38 seconds, which is just ridiculous. 8 hours faster than me. How the hell? I don't know how that's done, but that's what the old Tinterweb said. Can you run 100 miles without training? I don't think you can run 100 miles without training if you're an absolute beginner. I think if you've got a history of training or have trained in the past and you have a relatively flat route and a tough mindset, and you've got some training experience and training history, and you've perhaps not trained for like 6 months or whatever, then I think you can get away with it. Other than that, you are lining yourself up for a lot of pain, a hell of a lot of pain. And you might kind of scratch your way through, but there's just so much that goes into running 100 miles that you don't really think about. Like, after, people that have done a marathon, they'll know that sometimes your nipples can start bleeding. The salt can build up in your t-shirt, and the seams on your t-shirt can rub until you're bleeding. There's just things that happen that you've got to do a certain amount of training to learn that stuff. You've also got to do a certain amount of training and hours to learn what nutrition works for you. And of course, you've got to do a certain amount of hours and time on your feet to condition yourself to do that distance. So I don't think you can do it without training. It'd be a great video if you did, but you definitely need to be doing something or have experience or like almost muscle memory, in my opinion. I'm sure there's some weirdos out there that could just go and crack it and not even think about it, but I wouldn't recommend it. Another one, are ultra runners crazy? Mark, you can answer that one, but yes, we're all pretty much crazy. Have to be. Well, we're not in our own world, it's just what we do. It's how we find our fun and zest for life. But I know from the outside, some people allow you to get mental. In fact, the 2 questions I've had from doing this 100-miler, one was, how did you do that? And the second one was, why did you do that? And it's funny, I can answer the how much easier than I can answer the why. But we just do. So yeah, a little bit nuts, definitely. Do you sleep during a 100-mile race? Some people do. So some people can, some people go to sleep. I was quite prepared to have a little snooze, 5, 10, 20-minute snooze or whatever. I didn't feel the need to. I just kept on going. In fact, I was trying to get the crew to sleep more than me because, I was busy. I had enough aches and pains going on my legs to not sleep. So I didn't. Some people do. I didn't. And it wasn't part of my race strategy either, other than, if I needed to, I would have done that. So what is the minimum training for a 100-mile race? I'd consider what I've done to be the minimum training, really. Now, what I've done is I've done kind of a training program where I've slowly built up. I've done like slowly built up my mileage from 6-7 miles a week up to 20, 30 miles a week. Now the real important runs that you do become your long runs, at the weekends for most people. So every Saturday or Sunday I would do like a long run, and it started with like I'd do a 2-hour run, and then I'd do a 1-hour run the next day, and then I did a 3-hour run, and I did 1.5-hour run the next day, and then I did I think it was a 4-hour run, and then a 2-hour run the next day. I then did a 6-hour run and 2 hours the next day. And then I was sick with COVID. And then once COVID sort of passed and all that, I then did, because I was helping Graham out with his race, I did a 38 mile run. It was like a little bit of a test to see how I was. And then a couple of, like a week or so to rest and recover. And then I went for it. Okay. And I kind of think that as a minimum, really. I know some people do a lot more mileage in their preparation, but I think that was kind of enough. And I really do think I played it quite well. Obviously, I got through it. So hopefully that answers that. How do you know you're ready to run 100 miles? I think you know you're ready when you can commit to it. Like I said, that you're not gonna go, hey, let's see how it goes. If we just sort of try and open this door and see how it goes, it suggests you're not going to do it. But when you can go, I'm going to do this, whatever it takes. I'm going to do it. I think then you kind of know you're ready. I think it's also a little bit like, when do you have a baby? How do you know it's ready? How do you know you're ready to have a baby? There's never really a right time. But if you're thinking, look, I'm doing the mileage now, and and you start thinking other people have done it, and and I tend to do all right, so I should. Why can't I? I think that's when you're ready. That's when you're ready to go and give it a crack. The last question I've got in here: how do long distance runners not get so tired when they are running so far? You do get tired. Your what do you call it? Your interpretation of tired changes. I see people all the time at boot camp, and they're training, they're working, and they're thinking, "Well, I'm done, I'm cooked, I can't work any harder." I'm like, "Yeah, you can. I know you can. You just haven't learned how to do it yet." And so you do get tired, but your response to that tiredness changes, and you kind of tend to work through it. The other thing is that it's a constant effort. Joe will agree with me on this. It's a constant effort to stay on top of your food and your nutrition, and also your hydration. And all that helps into making sure that you've got energy. I had a plan where I was aiming for between 400 and 500 calories an hour. I didn't hit it every time because there was a time when I was kind of vomiting and I was struggling to get anything down. But that's kind of what I was aiming for. I was also aiming for 500 milliliters of water every hour, unless I was actually motoring pretty quick, or 500 milliliters of fluid. And one of Andy's jobs was to monitor that and tell me whether I was under or over. And so it's one of those things. It's a constant effort to keep on top of that, to make sure you've got energy. And then the final thing that you do is you really monitor your pace and control your pace. Because if you just sort of head out like an absolute nutcase, you're just going to burn up all your ready energy, and you're just not going to be able to process fat and other stored energy fast enough to keep you going. And that's when we talk about like bonking and having like blood sugar lows, and hypoglycemic episodes and all that kind of stuff, all of which I've had in the past, and it's just a process of learning really to avoid that kind of stuff. But again, it boils down to that problem solving and choices as you're going through the event. Okay, Kath saying, that was my early question. What did you do before and then to prepare for training? So I kind of covered that already. Lots of long runs at the weekends. They're the really important thing because of the type of adaptation that happens in the body compared to other modes of training. And it's also time on your feet, and learning all those things that I spoke about before. Right, guys. So I'm gonna wrap this up unless there's any more questions coming in. We're just coming up to an hour. Hopefully that's been of benefit to you. I just want to reiterate that, I'm not a super runner. I'm an average runner at best. I can, an averagely consistent runner, training wise at best. And if you're looking to up your mileage, do some different events, some tough events, it really is there for the taking. Learn how to look after yourself, push for those long, slow, steady days, your long runs every week. And it really is there for the taking. And if you need help, subscribe to this channel because I'm constantly banging out videos with little tips and advice in there, and reach out and message me. Carol's saying a couple of times we told you had more miles before the next checkpoint than you actually had by mistake. Didn't that hinder or help? It definitely hindered. So what he's saying there is basically, if I had 4 miles to go, he'd say, right, you got 5 because they wanted me to speed up. Now, the issue with that is I'd spent 2 days putting a spreadsheet together with all these times and distances on there. So it just didn't ring true. I knew every canal stage was pretty much 6 miles. So when I got a 5 mile or a 7 mile or whatever it was, I was like, that's not right. And it definitely played in my head. What you need from a support crew is just constant honesty in order to make a decision. Because once you kind of lose trust in what they're saying, it's like, it can really play with your head. You don't quite understand it. And you're not thinking as clearly as you normally would, but little things get you through the race. Like I'm going, okay, I know it's 4 miles now and I can do this time, an hour, and I can do all this kind of stuff. And, you just want an honest idea of where you are to be able to make that decision. And I think, there were a couple of times when, you told me the wrong distance or that I had to move faster than I actually had to. And that was pretty shit. But then there was other times when it was absolutely bang on. There was times when, like Andy was saying, if you do, I think it was Graham was saying 3.5 hours from here on in, you're going to make it, and blah, blah, blah. And so, yeah, I think it was a good mix. And I think with some people, it would help. With me, I was like, oh no, this, didn't really help. It wasn't a manipulation. It was a mistake. Yeah, I think that's what it was. Just like guess, I think it was a mistake. There's a mistake on the sheet, if I remember rightly. I put the wrong distance or wrong time in or something like that. And, you can't really do much about that. But yeah, it definitely knocked me. The old 31 miles turning into 38 miles was a bit of a kicker because, 7 miles, like head out and run 7 miles now. You won't want to. And I definitely didn't want to run it after doing 60 odd miles. Okay. So, yeah, that kind of, it didn't hinder me because I got it done, you know what I mean? But it did kind of take the wind out of my sails a little bit. But it was no biggie. Right. Any other questions? We're gonna sort of chat away and fill a bit of time, have a little drink, and then we'll definitely kind of wrap it up. Before I go, again, just to let any more questions coming in or comments. Next year, I've got a few things coming up next year. I've got a 200-mile ski tour in the Arctic. I've got a load of different wilderness canoe trips coming up, which I'll share and do videos about them. But I've also got a series of challenge with a great group of guys, ex-Marines, and a few civilians as well, called the Green Yeti. And I just want to kind of share it and talk about that a little bit if I can. So, how do I bring up the screen here? Here we go. Choose a tab. This one. Okay, so there's a page on Facebook, and it's called the Green Yeti 2021 Challenge. it's a series of challenges, like 3 main challenges, which the group are going to do. Now, there's 10 people in the group, including me. The first couple of challenges, the first one is they're going to do 3 ascents and descents of Snowdon in, I think it's 12 hours or 24 hours. The 3 toughest routes up Snowdon and down, okay, in that time period. So I'll definitely be doing that. And then another one is the National 3 Peaks Challenge. I do that 2 or 3 times every year, but I'll take the video camera and all that across, and I'll do a little video on that as well. And then the culmination is an ascent of Mont Blanc, to summit Mont Blanc. Now, only 6 out of the team will do that, and I'm hoping it's going to be me. So all my messages on the side. Couldn't be. There's me OPSEC that I'll end that now. Keeping your details safe. Old Craig GDPR Williams. So what I'm saying is get yourself over to Facebook, find that Green Yeti 2021 challenge page, and please like and share it. There is a donation link there. I know it's mega early to start donating and stuff like that, but if you've got a few spare pennies before Christmas, chuck them in, and we'll get onto the pounds later on. But I'm going to start sort of building up towards that, and I'm just really hoping that I get to go up Mont Blanc, because that'd be great. When you've done lots of distance, the only way to go now is up. So be really good for that. So please share it and just get some of your friends and that to back it if you can. All right, we're going to wrap up. Kathy's saying brilliant, well done again, fantastic achievement. Thanks, Kathy. Thanks to everybody that's been on, especially Joe. I just want to do a big thank you here to my support crew, Joe, Andy that manned the checkpoints, Paula and Danny, and my dog Dottie that came out to see me, and also my pacers Graham and Ash. They were just absolutely fantastic and definitely helped to get me through it. So again, thank you very much, and look out for the film that's coming, where I'll kind of really break down the what's been going on into more of a cinematic sort of documentary style film. And so make sure you've subscribed to the YouTube channel, and you'll get a notification for when that comes out. All right, so until the next time, take care.